back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. We've got a celebrity with us.
Oh,
I know you don't like that, but I'm going to say it out loud anyway, too. Look, there's only one place to start, really. Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you. This has been like a long time. Like we spoke about this probably over a year ago.
yeah, we did. Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you for giving us some time. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
So, should we start with Pit Pony and
Yes, let's get it out of the way.
that impact? So we were talking just now, and I did a bit of research before. I spent a bit of time just actually scrolling through the Pit Pony video.
Mm.
110, well, actually almost 111,000 views now. There's, over 100 comments on there. Like the impact that this has had on the tuition community in the UK, but I'd say not just the tuition community, but those teachers who have felt stuck, not knowing what to do next. How does it feel to be a part of that?
It's really, really hard to explain. I feel quite humbled that I've had that much of an effect on so many people. Me, Sharon, and Sarah. Obviously, it's not just me. Um, I tried to explain it to somebody actually at the last tutoring conference because obviously I got called up and I did not know that was going to happen and I was really embarrassed. But anyway, I was talking to people at the conference because obviously I am recognised and I often think of it. And did you ever watch a program called Quantum Leap?
Yes.
Yeah. So Sam leaps from life to life until he does something good and changes something and then he leaps on to another life. And without the leaping bit, I always think that Pit Pony video is like my quantum leap moment. That
No.
actually I have done something that
Oh,
is
massive.
I feel really humble when people say it's changed their life because actually it's just a conversation between three of us and we certainly did not expect that to have the impact it did. If I'd have known, I'd have definitely put some makeup on and brushed my hair.
Do you think the timing of it was like paramount? Because was this COVID? Was it before, just
It
after?
was it was just after COVID. It was just as everybody was going back. We'd sort of gone back. Do you know what I mean? We were then going back, and it was after I think the second lockdown was in the January, and that would have been in the April.
Because we had this moment in time where I'm not saying life stood still, and I know for teachers who are still teaching full time, there was still a lot of schools still kind of doing full time work. So I know this doesn't apply to
Mm.
everybody. I know we had key workers in and often had people on a rota, but things slowed down and things changed for a bit, and suddenly
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, this feels different," and we want a little bit more of that in our lives somehow. And I think then the looming dread, it was almost like that Sunday feeling all over again, but in one big hit, like, oh, we have to go back and do our jobs in the way that we were doing it before. Um,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think because I do say this in the Pit Pony video. I actually do think that the COVID lockdown was the best thing to happen to me because it actually forced me to stop. The COVID lockdown, we stopped. Yes, we were still online and we were still, I mean, I was one of the lucky ones that I didn't have to teach online. We just had to upload work. Um, but we were talking to pupils all day and things online. So we were still working, but we were enjoying spending some time, even if you were in your little bubble. Do you know what I mean? And we were spending some time with family. I quite like the fact that I didn't have to get up at 6:30 in the morning and put my makeup and my shoes on and dress in that those. Do you know what I mean? I could wear what I wanted. I could put my, and when it all started to go back, and when we were I think we lost a really great opportunity with the COVID to change how we work in this country. And I know some changes, some places are still, you can still work from home is a lot more common now than it ever was. But I don't think schools changed at all. I think we went back and it was all expected to be exactly how it was before. And all right, so now we've got to work even harder to get these kids to catch up on what they've missed rather than
yeah.
nurturing them to be able to catch up on what they've missed and but not make them feel like they've missed it. And
We
I
missed
think
the
we just
point.
missed a great opportunity.
I agree. I agree. And actually, we are seeing, particularly, I mean, it will, if it hasn't fed through to secondary, it will. We are seeing some high level of social need coming in
Yeah.
into the children are starting school age 4/5, like needs that we've never seen before, or at a level that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Because there were some things that I didn't think about, and I really should have done. And this would be interesting to get your take on it, because just hearing a little bit about your background before we press record, like you do your community development work. Because I used to work in a lot of parent and toddler groups when I was younger, so we used to do a lot of family work, and really early years based, sort of from 0 to 3. And I didn't really think of the impact of those babies that were born who then weren't going to see health
No
visitors.
socialization either.
So I went to my old school a few weeks back, and I had a meeting with the Senko, and she was saying that this is quite an extreme case, but just to give you a bit of context, that last year with the intake, there was one child that came in and was not talking at all, wasn't toilet trained, nothing. And at the end of the day, that the teacher went up to the mum and was like, "Look, this is what's happened. This is what the day's been like. Is it? I think it wasn't the end of the day. It's midday. And the mum was like, "Well, I thought we'd come to school and you would do this." Like, and so just from having, obviously the school worked with that family for a year
Yeah.
now, and just through like gentle conversations, it just turns out that never had a health visitor appointment, or it'd been on the phone. So how can you gauge as a professional the milestones and things, and the speech language and everything else that goes on? So we've got this. That's a really extreme version, but there is like high level of needs coming in. So I didn't really think about that impact, and then what's that's going to look like at primary school, then what's that's going to leave behind when they go to secondary, and so on and so on.
Well, I think where teenage, because obviously I'm secondary, so the impact on teenagers has been absolutely massive in this country. The level of mental health needs now is enormous, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think certainly when I went back to school after COVID, and I've never classed myself as ever having mental health issues as such, other than stress. But just to be in that room with all of those people again, and all of that noise, and all of that closeness after standing 20 feet away from somebody in a Morrison's queue was the closest I'd got to anybody for 6 months, is what it felt like. But I'm sure it wasn't like that. But do you know what I mean? It was just that feeling of overwhelmed. If you're even slightly neurodivergent, that must have been massive, because that overwhelming noise and background noise and the smells and things like that, it just becomes too much. And I think that a lot of our teenagers really, really suffered during COVID, because the only interaction, they might have had interaction online, but interaction online isn't quite the same as it being there in your face and being close and being, do you know what I mean? I know my own son was, well, he's 24 now, so he was 18. He just finished college when COVID hit. And he is still suffering now. So he was 18 at the time. He's now 20, like early 20s. And he's still really struggling, because he struggles with just getting on a bus, just being close and being surrounded by those people. Just then, those few months of not having any contact with people other than online, he now struggles to go anywhere that's crowded. So he hasn't done the whole 1920s going to clubs and pubs and things, because he just can't handle it. And I think a lot of our teenagers are like that. I think the mental health of the teenagers, certainly the students, because I tutor a lot of home educated students, a lot. I would say 75% of my time is with students that do not attend mainstream school, and 90% of those is due to mental health reasons. And I think COVID has had a huge, huge impact on that. Huge. But I think with adults as well, I think, as you said about the pit pony, I think we'd all entered that time where we'd all got quite used to working with our slippers on and not having to get up quite so early. And do you know what I mean? And actually it felt like that it should have been a time where people started, well, no, it was a time when people started to want a little bit more, that actually my whole life is being taken up by my job. And actually I've realized what's more important. Especially those people, those of us that lost family members and things. It was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios played out.
Yeah.
Doubt, like so, like you say, it was. It, looking back now, like there were times when I reflect back and I think, wow, like it was largely positive, like as in
Mm,
what I found in our own little family bubble.
yeah.
We were lucky that nobody in our own little world became ill. But I say this a little bit with care because my other half worked in hospital and it was carnage. And I can remember it was about would have been mid-April, Kate coming home and she just lost it. Like she was,
Mm,
it was, people were dying, and you had like families outside the hospital. I mean, look, it was horrendous for some,
it was.
really, really bad. So I sometimes reflect back and go, wow, we had the weather was amazing. We were going on walks every day. It was real slow, and I know in my own little world it was like actually a really really positive thing. But I know it wasn't like that for everybody. I totally take on what you're saying about this. Like, miss in education, we kind of missed the boat almost with
Yeah.
possible changes we could have taken. And weirdly, I was on the way home from a concert last night, really late, and I bumped into a friend of mine I hadn't seen for a little while, and we were just chatting. And he was saying, I was saying to him, "Oh, what are you doing in London?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we had an office day. It's like the first
Mm,
we had in like 3 weeks." I was like, do you work from home, mate?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just work from. I should go in twice a week, but we don't. We usually go in once every 3 weeks because there's no need." And so
yeah. So that's been a proper shift, hasn't it?
yeah, and now company. I know I've heard of companies go, well, we don't need the offices in London anymore. Let's just
Yeah.
not work from home, and then when we get together, we'll hire an amazing space, or we'll go to a hotel for the day, or we'll do, and it's really changed the working practices. Look, teaching's pretty much like contained into buildings, right? Particularly mainstream education. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to move away from that, even though I still think there is a model we could introduce for certain children. I don't think we're really going to do it. We're not.
No, and I don't think we should,
No.
because in some ways, because I think school is um I don't know. It's just that whole thing, isn't it, about making your friends and things like that. There and and all your little rites of passages of getting lost when you go to secondary school, and then do you know what I mean, and all of those things that happens to everybody, and but I think that there is a real place that we could have changed it for those students that can't attend mainstream, for those students that are their mental health isn't good enough to go into school. Why are schools still being told that they have to encourage these students into school? Do you know what I mean? And things are slowly changing. They definitely are slowly changing. Um, but I think, going back to what we were saying, I think at the time of the pit pony, that it hadn't changed. We'd all gone back. And I think now, 3 years later, things are slowly changing, because a lot of my students are paid for by the local council, and or their schools are paying for them to have online tuition, because at least they're getting some form of education. So I think it is slowly changing. But I think at the time, we all felt like we didn't want to go back into the grind.
So with the pit pony, how did it even come about? Like, what's
Oh, don't.
the conversation?
Well, right. So I'd been on the Life After Teacher page. I was one of the first people to join the Life After Teacher page. I think I was on there like a month after they'd set it up. So I'd got to know Sharon and Sarah quite well online, all online, never met, hadn't even met them by the time we'd done the Pit Pony video. I'd never met either of them, never had a conversation other than on Messenger,
Wow.
other than one phone call to Sharon when I was at my lowest. Um, and so we like, do you know what? I can't even remember how it came about. We decided it was a Sunday afternoon, and we were going to record this conversation, because we'd all been saying there's got to be a way that people can get out of teaching. Do you know what I mean? And we'd had these conversations all via Messenger, and we'd had these conversations. I do remember that we did one conversation, and then Sarah realised that she hadn't hit record, so we had to do it again.
We've all been there.
Um, so yeah, and I think what it was because I'd started off. I'd started off on this Life After Teaching page, and I'd made a comment, and I do talk about it in the Pit Pony video. I'd made a comment that, does anybody else have a tree on the way to work? Not a tree that they want, it's not talking about, ending your life, just enough. I mean, me as a mathematician, I'd even worked out angles and things that if I hit this tree at a certain angle at a certain speed, I could potentially be off work for sort of 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
But bad enough that I wouldn't be asked to set any cover work or anything, because do you know what I mean? And it was things like that. So, and this I'd written it on the Facebook page when I'd really at one of my lowest ever points. And the support I got, and everybody else going, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I thought that was just me. And then so, because that had become quite a thing on the Life After Teaching page, I think that's when that conversation between me, Sharon and Sarah had come about, was actually, let's talk about that, and let's talk about giving some people some real help and some real sort of strategies to put into place to attract, to try and get out of a job, any job really, that you're feeling really trapped in. Yeah, it now it seems bizarre to me now that that thought had even crossed my mind. And I think it was just everything. It was the going back after COVID. It was the stress of it. It was just everything. It was just too much. And I wasn't on my own. So when I put that on that Life After Teacher page, realizing that I wasn't the only person feeling like that was absolutely massive, absolutely huge for me. And that gave me the courage to go, I need to do something. I need to do something.
So you get involved with Life After Teaching, and then you're building up like those connections and relationships.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, massive. Some of those people that we're talking about on the tree, I still talk to weekly now. So they're huge connections. You have to, because you have to be. I mean, I work online, so I'm in my office on my own. You can see my office. My son's got a computer there, so he does some admin work for me. So he's here occasionally. And without those connections, I would be on my own, working all day, and not do you know what I mean? You just feel overwhelmed, I think is the only way to describe it. So I've been in business like, what is it, 3 years now? And I still get overwhelmed, and I still sit here with my to-do list and with my head in my hands and going, I have no idea where to go with this, what to do next. And so the next thing I do is I message Chrissy, or I message Matt, or I message Sharon, or I message Sarah, and I go, oh my God, what do I do? And somebody comes back and goes, right, okay, deep breath, have a fag, make a cup of tea, and we'll sort it out.
Big names there. Should we just give them a proper shout out? So
yeah, let's give them a proper shout out.
He does loads right in the community for tutors, particularly down in your way. So there's the meetups.
Yeah. She runs, yeah. So Chrissy, I worked with Chrissy when we were both in school.
Okay.
And then so obviously she knew me from school, obviously different departments because she's English, I'm maths. And I'm gonna take a bit of credit for Chrissy, and she'll laugh now. She just came to see me. She messaged me, can we meet up for coffee? Yeah, okay. Met her in Marks and Spencer's for coffee, and she was like, I really need to leave. And so you can do this. And so I talked her through what she needed to do. And nearly a year later, she messaged me again. Right, okay, I need to meet you again. I really do need to do this now. So it took her a couple of goes. And me and Chrissy, or Chrissy and I, since she's an English tutor, I better speak properly. We probably talk every day. And I think I've helped her with some aspects of her business and setting up, and she certainly helped me because she's the one I go, oh my God, I just need a rant. Can I just rant to you about this? And I don't know what to do. And yeah,
Yeah,
Or I don't know what car to buy. So it's like a friendship thing. It's not necessarily always business. Do you know what I mean?
that's so key. Like that's where that true connection really takes you. It takes you towards friendship. Like it just
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We were colleagues when we were at school together, but now we're friends.
and you obviously Sarah Dunwood, Sharon Corley. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
they need introductions. They're
we
both
are not worthy.
unbelievable. Yeah, and how I often sort of pinch myself sometimes, probably similar to you. I'm like, actually, I'm stuck with something. To be able to just text or send a voice note and just even sometimes it's not even about like the advice. It's more the we're
Just
here.
you need somebody to tell.
That's it. Sometimes that's
Yeah,
it. You mentioned Matt Wilkinson.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
guy. Love
So
Matt.
yeah, so Matt is again. Matt's not, but he's down in my sort of area, my neck of the woods, if you like. And I think he spoke to Chrissy first. I can't really remember. We sort of all got together, and I met him at the tutoring conference last year. Um, and we've done a little bit of work together, and we've got something planned in the pipeline for January working together. So yeah, I think this year's tutoring conference, it was all about corroboration, not competition. And I really took that away from this year's conference. And actually, yeah, it's been really good. And there's other people over the last 3 years that I've met online, and we talk every day, every other day. They're now what I would call friends. People have visited me from London and come down and see me, come and stayed for a week. And not, oh, where's she come from? From Derby. Yeah, another friend came down from Derby this year. And yeah, just online friends and but also online sounding boards and colleagues. It is so important. You feel so alone otherwise.
I agree. And do you know, I think I don't know if we've spoken about this yet, but you tutor online only, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Being in your own space, tutoring online, often it can, even though you're connecting online, a bit like we are now,
yeah,
still not quite the same, is it? So having these meetups just adds something else into the
yeah.
mix. When it keeps you connected and gets you, I don't know, talking in a different way or yeah, getting to know each other in a slightly different way. So it is,
Yeah, I agree because I'm very I can be quite a loner anyway. Do you know what I mean? I can be quite sort of in myself um and the tutoring conference set off that whole thing last year about actually I do need to be meeting people a bit more and not just talking to them online and going because I think there's a different connection and especially when you've all had a couple of drinks or two, you have those deeper conversations, and do you know what I mean? Though, and you get to know each other, and you get to know a bit thing about, and it's just, I like to call it like a staff room almost, and how staff rooms used to be. My first ever school staff room, everybody would go to the staff room at break time, and everybody would go to this, and you would often teachers would be discussing things other than lessons and data and interventions and revision
wow.
classes, we would be
Yeah,
discussing things about
yeah.
our personal lives. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's lost a little bit in schools now. And I think it's really hard
Don't
when
have
you
time.
work on your own.
Don't have time. That's the truth. It's
No,
what really changed. The new curriculum changed, and everyone's like,
yeah,
"Wow, I'm put it all in." Look, that's just um, amazing, and I love all of this. And there's some plans in place to have, and it's probably gone out there by the time we've put this. I actually want this to go out like soon. I'd like to get this podcast out ASAP. So we're in under the Tutors Who Thrive banner, going to start creating these meetups around the
yeah,
country.
yeah,
So excited about for all the reasons that we've just spoken about, because particularly if you're new into the space, to be able to go, oh, I can go there and this is trusted because I'm in this space online. So we're going to take it out and make it an in real life thing.
yeah. And but there's also then the opportunities, those work opportunities that you would hear about, and um you might not hear about it. You wouldn't hear about it if you were just online on your own. And do you know what I mean? So you go up and you meet tutors of other subjects, and you go meet other, people's at other stages of their business as well, or other different size business. Because I sometimes, right, so every occasionally I get this whole, oh my word, I'm not as big as say Chrissy is, and Chrissy's only been going a year and I've been going 3 years, so I should be having twice as many students by now. And then I think, whoa, stop, hang on, are you earning enough? Yeah. Are you earning more than you were as a teacher? Yeah. Are you happy with what you're doing? Yeah. So actually, right, I do want to grow a little bit more, but I don't actually want to do that anymore. I want to do this.
Yeah.
But some of the connections I've made, that's what's enabling me to do that. Because without those connections, I'd be sitting here going, what do I do now?
Mm.
How do I do any more? How do I earn any more money or get any more job satisfaction or
Mm.
those other opportunities? So over the last 3 years, when I first started, I said yes to pretty much everything. So I worked for some agencies that I dropped quite quickly. A few months in, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not working for you anymore. You don't treat me with enough respect. You don't know my worth. And actually, no. But to start with, that was exactly what I needed. I needed to know that, and I needed to work with those people. And because then you don't recognize the good ones. And actually, that took a lot of the pressure off me of finding students. But it also led to some really good connections. So I'm one off the top of my head. I had I signed up for an agency. I think it was based in Wales. Right, we're southwest, but Wales is completely different. But it was based in Wales, and I had one student. So one student in Wales, he paid me £25 an hour, which was low even when I started. That was like at the lowest end of my, that was my bottom line was £25 an hour. And I carried on working with him because I liked the student. So I carried on working with him. That led to me earning £100 an hour with some apprenticeship engineers. I now have 5 students in Wales that have all come from word of mouth. One of those apprentice engineers came back to me a few weeks ago and can I just have a top up because I've got this exam that I need to get through. Another one of those engineers come back and said, any chance you could tutor my son? So it's all those connections, but if I hadn't have taken that one up, that I wouldn't have got.
Mm.
So I've got a student that I've taught since year 9 that is now doing maths A level with me. I've never ever met her. She has a camera off, so I've never even seen her.
Was
But I
this
would never have had, and she's an absolutely amazing student, but I never would have had the opportunity to tutor her if I hadn't have been going through an agency and met somebody else that I've had a conversation with and that we've had met up with and that I've become, who's one of the very few agencies that I work for now. But actually, that saying yes to everything means that although I dropped some things, it means I know what I want to do and I've made those connections to enable me to do that.
There's something in there as well about knowing, there was something about you knowing your value. So going
Mm-hmm.
that thing in the early stage and thinking, actually, no, I'm better than this.
Yeah.
I need to do something else on my own. But actually the power of saying yes to certain things that because you don't know what's going to happen over the other side. So
Yeah.
earning that £25 an hour in the crappy agency that wasn't paying you what you were worth actually then led you into finding your worth later on by using that as a catalyst. I think there's a little bit of a fear around agency work, and
Yeah.
maybe so, maybe
Yeah,
because
quite right. In some ways, quite rightly so.
you do due diligence, and uh,
But it is there is that whole thing as well. Is if right, so you need to have other tutors to support you, and you do. You need to make those connections with people. But ultimately, at some point, you are still on your own, sitting there with your pen and paper, trying to get students into your groups or into your one-to-ones. And if an agency can take some of that pressure off, then you should take some of that pressure off to enable you to work on your own business a little bit longer and a little bit more.
100%. That is what I want you to say, but you said it way better than what I was going to. So thank you, Steve. That was it, because that's it right there. And I think that fear paralyzes us
Yeah.
rather than enabling us to do what we need to do. Just I keep coming back to somebody, Nikki Marshall. We recorded something ages and ages ago. She's not a tutor, she just runs other businesses. She was saying the thing you do now doesn't have to be the thing. So, and that's so powerful. Because like, okay, I can do an agency now, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do agency forever.
No.
The agency for 2 months, but it
Yeah.
cuts you off. You're less worried, your anxiety's dropping, and you're going to use that as the catalyst for the next thing.
And it is just simply that. It's the right. So when I first started, you'll see on the Pit Pony video, I say it to Sharon and Sarah, it's all about these multiple income streams. But actually, by working for, I did some work for Connexus at the beginning. I had the agency that I do still work for. I worked for them right from the very beginning, but I worked for maybe 6 or 7 different agencies and different companies when I first started. So my timetable, I had a color-coded timetable, obviously, because I'm a teacher. So a different color for every company, and I still do that. So when I first started, I would say 70% of it was agency work and 30% of it was my own clients that I managed to find online. Now, I'm a bit of a slow burner. I'm not a Chrissy where I take off and multi-million-pound company in 2 years. So in 3 years, I've now reduced my hours. So I'm now not working as many hours. I think my September timetable, which is full, is on 35 hours a week. 5 or 6 of those hours are groups, but only 2 of those students are agency students. Everybody else, they're all my private students. So that's 80 students that are private students. And yes, it's taken me a little while to build that up, but I've built up a good reputation and I've built up a good name for myself. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'd have been so worried about getting students that I'd have been cramming them in, because I would, do you know what I mean? I'd have been trying to cram them in and not getting them. And that fear, that scarcity mindset that you're going to run out of money.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things here, right? Because we were talking about writing your own story. Everyone's got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast recording beginning of the week around that, actually, weirdly.
Yeah.
People going to write their own story. And it doesn't matter if it takes you a year or 2 years or 3 years. And I have a little bit of an aversion to, because I'm in the middle of launching a course right now. So this, otherwise people will think I'm going mad if they listen to it in like a month's time, but it's end of August or come to the end of August.
Yeah.
2024. So it closes at the weekend. And I am always told, so I have a business coach and I'm in other memberships, constantly told, like, get your social proof out there. Like, don't get me wrong, like social proof works.
Yeah.
Like if you're a tutor and you're a GCSE tutor, like today is results day, you want to be online going, oh my God, I'm so proud.
Yeah, of course you do.
That's social. What I find, because what I'm selling isn't that. But what I find is I could go, right, this one person who took the course 2 years ago is doing really well. And I don't like that, because I'm like, well, they might have had a different starting position. I might pick one person who did really well in 1 year. Like in 1 year, but that's not the reality of it. The reality is that for some of us, that can be a reality. But for us, it might take you 2 to 3 years. If you don't do any research about business, what I would say, genuine people would say, give yourself 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that we as teachers, we're so self-critical, aren't we? So self-critical, and we do compare ourselves. Let's be honest, as human beings, we compare ourselves, but actually, we do just need to go, yes, I can do this, and I can do it at my own pace. And some of honestly, that power of saying yes, over the last 3 years, I have had some amazing, like students and clients. And I went to a local home ed group and we did, I did a Friday morning with these, do you know what I mean? And things like that, what I never would have had, and students that I never would have been able to tutor. Because they wouldn't have come to me. They would have gone to somebody that was council approved, or do you know what I mean? And so these amazing students that I just wouldn't have had the chance to tutor. And that slow burner thing, I mean, I know we had the conversation before we pressed record. I didn't go to university until I was 38. And I went to university at 38 with 4 children at home. And I did a 5-year degree because I have no A levels because I left school at 16. So when my students go, oh my God, I've got to get a 4 because if I don't get a 4 now, that's it, I'm lost. And I'm like, no. You just slow down and you just go, you take it at your own pace. You're going to get there. You're just going to might take you a little bit longer than everybody else. But actually, as long as there's food on your table and as long as there's a roof over your head, does it matter how long it takes you to get to where you want to get to? It doesn't. but just say yes to those opportunities and say yes to those meeting people and going along to people, no matter how much out of your comfort zone it is, go and do it.
So what makes you the I want to say, I know I don't want to do, I'm going to keep this a bit more personal, right, before we go down the business route. What makes you you? Like, what's been your experiences of, let's go just to adult life that's helped you get to your point where you are right now?
Oh,
Biggie, but like, well, I know, I already know some of the answers and I'd love for you to share them with everybody.
go on.
So, you've got, so I don't, you'll have to fill in the missing parts, right? But
Right, okay.
things that we share, like an experience, which is community,
Yeah.
right? So that definitely plays a part. But I'm going to go back before that even. So 16, leave school.
Right, yeah. So 16, I left school. I did actually, right, so you've got to remember this was the 80s. So it was the early 80s, right? Things were a lot different. You know, you hear it all, you know, when all these dodgy DJs go up, but people say it was a lot different in the 70s and 80s. It really was. So anyway, I actually got kicked out of home a week after my 16th birthday, which was in the March of my year 11. So I was living with a boyfriend while I was at school. Right, so it's not going into too much detail, but anyway, needless to say, didn't get as many GCSEs or O levels as they were then as what I was expected to get. So I left school at 16 with five O levels, and one CSE in French, and went to and worked part time in a shop and everything. Went to do it all properly and go to sixth form college. Lasted a week. So I went and got a job on a youth training scheme in a shoe shop. Got sacked about a year later for being drunk on the job. Not realising I was drunk. What I'd actually tried to do was clean all the shelves and had just pulled all the shoes off in the middle of a big department store. Didn't go down well. Then I was a croupier in a casino. Did that for, oh God, quite a while. Married a Hell's Angel. Divorced a Hell's Angel. Worked in a Tenpin bowling alley. Was a debt collector. I did the debt collecting for about 2 years until I got robbed at knife point. And yeah, and then was a community development worker.
Okay, this is going to be
And
hard.
then moved to Cornwall.
Okay, this is going to be hard to piece together because they're so different. Out of all of those things, like I think some of that's just like you put down to life experiences and
Yeah.
that's and that's cool. What do you think that you take away from that period of time that you use today?
Right. So I think, right, I've spent a considerable amount of my life on benefits. Right. So with as you know, as some point in my life as a single mum with my first two children and so on. And I've and I grew up in my early adulthood and all that was very definitely, if I'd have been a student now, I'd have been a pupil premium student. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. So, you know, lived on a council estate, quite a rough council estate, from where I come from. Nothing like the cities, obviously, but in my area, quite a rough estate. And I think that working class background just gives me the ability to talk to parents and students. You know, if you're working with students that have mental health issues, students from deprived areas, and let's be honest, you know, a lot of the work that we do is in tuition. It isn't always the rich parents paying the rich kids, you know, as an extra. A lot of what I do during the day are my home educated students that aren't in school and do belong to parents, you know, that are on the breadline, and actually being able to talk to them and being able to talk to them on their own level. That certainly stood me in really good stead when I was at school, and I think that does now as well as a tutor. Do you know what I mean? I was known as the teacher that kids would come to, so I think that's why.
There's an openness, a way of communicating. You're approachable.
I've always, I mean, I used to get into trouble so often as a teacher for being a bit too honest, but I've always said that if a student would ask me a question, that I would give them an honest answer. So I wouldn't, I
Why
would
would
just tell them the truth.
Why are we like that in education? Because I've been told off for that before.
Yeah.
So a child's asked me my age, and I've told them it, and they've gone, "You can't be."
Yeah.
I
What's the problem?
don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
get. I'm asking my first name. Yeah, I'll tell them.
Yeah. Honestly, I've been told off. You've been told off no end of times, and down to things like, when I'm giving PSHE lessons when I'm in school as a teacher, which you're not trained for, by the way, in secondary, and you have some really, really deep topics that you have to cover. So if somebody asks me, "Have you ever spoke to Joint, Miss?" Yes, but we're not going to discuss that right now because actually, do you know what I mean though? Why not be honest with these kids? Because they're not stupid. For whatever reason you think, they are young adults and they're not stupid.
Yeah, like some of that stuff is very, very strange.
Yeah.
Again, fear.
Have you had sex before you got married, miss? Well, yeah, of course I did. Do you know what I mean?
I don't. Yeah, some of that stuff I don't. I really don't. I really don't get. And but I think so that there lies the path, right? The split between being a teacher and then being a tutor. Because the next
Mhm.
is like, what is tuition for you? How does it differ?
Um, right. So I class myself as having two quite distinct sets of students. I have my daytime students and I have my evening students. My evening students are students whose parents are paying for extra to top up their mainstream education. Right, so your classic tuition, if you like. And yes, we have really good. I built up really good relationships with my evening students, um, but I'm there just to top up their work that they're already doing. So I sit there and I listen to them moan about their teachers and moan about their schools, and I sympathise and empathise and go, yeah, that's why I'm not there anymore either. And totally agree with you. You should be allowed to dye your hair pink for school, but I wasn't allowed to, which is why I've left. And do you know what I mean? And so you could have a laugh and you can relate to them. And then there's my other students, which are my educated at home students that I teach during the day, where I am their only maths teacher. So it's no different to being in school, except that I haven't got to mark in purple pen and I haven't got to get their feedback in blue pen and I haven't got to write the date in full and underline it. And we can have that conversation and we can have a laugh and a joke and we can play a silly game at the end if we want to, because actually we're still learning, we're still doing our times tables, and who cares if we're giggling at the same time. And that to me is the difference, that I can actually teach how I want to teach, and build up those relationships with those students that I know those students need, without somebody saying, yeah, you shouldn't really be doing a game. Are they all focused? No, you've got one student at the back who's not playing that game. Right, okay, so that means the other 29 can't. And things like that. So actually having that freedom to teach how I want to teach within restrictions, obviously, because I'm online, then it just means everything. Honestly, the today results day, getting that first message come through. Honestly, I've had about 3 hours sleep, so forgive the bags under my eyes today, because you're more nervous as a tutor than you are as a teacher because you feel more responsible. Talking about that to somebody on your page today, actually. And but you're getting those grades come in and you're getting those home educated students, and they're I've had a student today who was selectively me who got a grade 8, and another one who the third time she's been reset and she's got a grade 4. Doesn't matter if it's an 8 or a 4, that achievement is still their personal achievement, and that is still amazing for that student. So I haven't got somebody going, yeah, but they should have got a 5, because it's only 5s that count. I don't care. She's got a 4. She's never going to have to do maths again for as long as she lives. Do you know what I mean? Other than the maths she doesn't know she's doing with her pocket calculator in her phone. Yeah, but she's not going to, do you know what I mean, though? She's not going to have to solve an equation again.
Not going to see maths paper again, is she? That's
No.
done it.
But she is going to book me in because she's now halfway through her college course on doing nails. So she is going to book me in for my nails next year. She said I can have them for free. And actually,
That'll be
that's
better.
all that matters. She hasn't got to do her maths every Wednesday afternoon now. Do you know what I mean? And yes, we've had a couple of people that haven't passed. And as a tutor, oh my God, that properly, properly hurts.
Yeah. What do we do
But
because that we're again that's something which comes up I suppose every year for GCSE and A level
yeah,
tutors. Well, I do Kent Test or 11 plus. It comes
yeah.
up every year. Um, we can't. Well, first question: why do we feel it?
Why do we do
Yeah, why are we
it?
doing this to ourselves? Where does that feeling come from? Why do we take that responsibility? Because we've taken everybody through the program in the same way we would treat everybody the same, but
Yeah.
yet we tend to like dwell on the ones who didn't make it rather than really
The
focus on.
one rather than yeah, yeah. So I've thought longer about my 2 or 3 students that got a grade 3 today and didn't pass than I have about the 3 or 4 students that got a grade 9. So I think a lot of it comes back from when we were at school, though, from when we're teachers at school, because I know for secondary, I don't know what it's, but I know at secondary, you'd be in there in the morning, getting all the results, celebrating with the students, do you know what I mean? Them all doing the silly photos where they're all jumping up with their results in their hand and all that sort of stuff. And you'd be celebrating. And then all the students would go home, and it's been the same pretty much every school I've worked in. The next thing would be you'd be in a department meeting, and they'd be comparing the teachers to see who had got the best results, who had done the best. They'd be pulling apart I don't care if they got a grade 4 and they passed. They should have got a grade 5. That's their target grade according to FFT. Why didn't they get a 6? Because they were in the foundation paper and the highest grade they could get was a 5. The amount of years I had that argument. Um, but we're just pulled apart. So I think that is a bit of a hangover from teaching, is that you feel responsible for that student and you
Yeah.
feel responsible for them not getting the grade that they hoped they would get.
Mm,
I'm not a believer in target grades.
no. I think the whole hanging on to baggage is something
Yeah.
we do a lot as teachers. Do you know, it is different. Well, I'm going to speak from my experience in a year 6 where we do the end of key
Mm,
stage. That it's largely positive,
yeah.
largely positive. That you don't get me wrong, you still might be like questioned about certain children, but to the point of have we done enough? Did we put everything we possibly could to really support them? And if we have, when it's the most likely answer to that question is yes, then what else could we possibly do? We go and look at the ones who were what we call the cuspy children and go,
Yeah.
which ones did? Oh my gosh, amazing. I went back in, I tutored in a school for the last 3 years doing exactly that, really. They would give me children from year 4, 5, and 6 who are the cuspy ones to work
Yeah.
with ongoing. And I ended this year, so kind of saw out the last year 6 group. I went back to their leavers assembly and they hadn't told me the results. But then walking in, they were like, honestly, like it gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. They're like, Rich, we did it. We got these kids through, And it's like, yes, that's the kind of thing that we should be like all the time. Yeah,
Absolutely.
they all
Yeah.
make it. No, they didn't, because you know what? We live in the real world. We don't live in the world of data. These are real human beings, and they have some of these families have awful, awful lives. So, but
God.
getting good at reading or being good at maths is so far down the list, and
Yeah.
that's the
And
reality of it.
schools cannot counteract the poverty that exists in this country, and it is the poverty that causes the issues.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, one of the worst things that ever happened in this country was getting rid of Sure Start centres.
Oh,
That place
amen.
where that place where people could go and just get that support.
Yeah, agree. I did a lot of work for Sure Start in my early days.
Yeah, I did. I worked for Sure Start a lot when I was in the community development work.
I've online, not in real life, but had arguments with people because they released a report. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Sue, saying how ineffective it was.
Oh,
And I was
rubbish.
like, right, I'm not having that because
No.
I lived it and I breathed it for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Nobody can convince me that that did not work. And there were some real liabilities taken with some of the money. Like, so for example, I was just leaving at this point, and it was on its way out at that point anyway. They built a massive children's centre where I live, And it was, oh, the plans were amazing. I was like, oh, we're going to do all our groups here. It's really
Yeah,
sensible. We like had like all these little office spaces where you could have health visitors, midwives, all that proper multi-agency stuff,
yeah,
which is what it was all about. And then 80% of the building got given to a private company to do daycare. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, two offices, we're not going to do anything here. But
Yeah, it's not going to work. And that's what they then based the data on to say that it didn't work.
no,
We had the same thing, community centres and just all those different agencies all working together with the sole purpose of helping families. It
yeah,
was amazing. It was amazing, and
definitely.
and
Oh,
and honestly, it's the when I see the latest report of schools are going to be asked to teach this and schools are going to be asked to teach that, and you're like, okay, right, that's another thing to add to the list. That shouldn't be. That's not down to a secondary school maths teacher to teach a child how to brush their teeth or to teach them how to um socialize with you. Do you know what I mean? Or interview skills or money. It's just like all those different things that Sure Start did, how to cook on a budget and all the cookery classes and things we used to go to. And the health visitors, you'd go and you'd just see the health visitor there and you'd say, right, I didn't really want to bother the doctor, but and you'd get some advice and you get some genuine advice and genuine support on everything from your child sleeping to helping with the reading and the writing and it's just all been taken away. I'm going to get political, so I'm going to stop there. But it is just all been
I,
taken away.
I definitely could stand on a soapbox about that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm absolutely adamant. And this fake report, I was like, wow, absolutely, like just yeah, be
Just
right.
nonsense.
Yeah,
I'm telling you now, as a statistician, we can make them reports say anything we want.
exactly that. That's exactly how I felt. And I was like, if you were doing it at that time and you saw the sorts of families that were engaging with the services, you'd absolutely go, right, we need to pump all that money back in, and you would.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Absolutely do. Because the
But you're
food
right.
banks are trying to do that support system, but they can't. They're volunteers. It's all voluntary and it's all charity. They can't do it all.
No, and is that not an abomination in itself? The fact that we need them,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it's amazing. I know there's so many people in our local area. I'm sure it's the same in you, where they're
yeah,
just doing so much work and helping some really like vulnerable families, which is amazing. Um, but anyway, look, sure start, yeah, or special place in time for me,
yeah.
especially.
It does me.
So I feel like we could talk for.
Yeah, forever. Sorry.
And we should at some point. We definitely need to do it again because I've got so many notes in front of me that I've not even started to explore yet. Um, but I wanted to end on one more thing. Look, with the pit pony, with the impact
Hmm.
that you've made and keep making, because that thing is just growing and growing all the time. We have more people connect with it. If you had let's say this at teachers now, not
Okay.
children, teachers, that teacher who, like you explained, like with Chrissy earlier on, who was like, look, I really need to do something, but I don't know what it is. What would your advice be to someone who just feels very stuck? I'm going to be quite precise and say stuck with the money worry, because that's something we spoke about before we pressed record,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it is a true thing, isn't it? We're like, well, I can't.
yeah. It is. It is so hard. I mean, there's been there's been lots of times in my life where I've been on benefits. I've had bailiffs come put clamps on my cars, um, and you don't want to go there. You've got that scarcity mindset. So once you're earning a decent wage, and let's be honest, teaching is not a bad wage, um, you then don't want to lose that, and you don't want that fear again. So especially if you've been there, you don't want that fear again of going down to the job centre and claiming your benefits and them have the benefit system having that hold over you. However, I will say that part of what I would do is absolutely exactly what the pit pony tells you to do, which is work out your bottom line, work out how much you need to survive. not to have your luxury holidays and your Sky TV and sponsoring your donkey in Guatemala or whatever, but how much you absolutely need to survive, and break it right down. Break it really, really right down and go, right, that's how much I need to earn. That's how much I'm looking at. Then get yourself onto a salary calculator. The amount of times I see people say that, oh my God, I can't leave and I can't go and get a job for £25,000 a year because I'm earning 35,000 now and I couldn't take that £1,000 a month drop. No, you've rounded it. You've rounded it all. You've not taken into account the drop in tax, the drop in national insurance, the drop in your student loans, the drop in your pension. But if you see a job that you want to go for, put it into an online salary calculator and see what the monthly drop is. And if your monthly drop is just your donkey in Guatemala and your Sky TV, you can absolutely afford to take that job. And then start applying, start looking. And so honestly, some of the people, I've spoken to loads and loads of people since the Pit Pony video. I do try and be a bit of a, I've got this philosophy that kindness is magic. And if you can be kind to people, then it'll come back to you. Okay, so I do try to be kind and I do try to give advice wherever I can online to people. And I say, check your salary calculator, check your benefits calculator. If you've got children at home, why are you worrying about childcare costs if you take that job? Because if you take that job, then Universal Credit would pay 75% of your childcare costs. So have a look and put your benefits calculator head on and see just what you're entitled to, because you've been paying your tax for the last 10 years, 20 years. You're perfectly entitled to claim some of that back. So properly put your head on and be proactive about what you can do. And then try and find a support network. If you want to do tutoring, then join your page and join the other tutors, the tutors pages that are connecting tutors to each other, because we do have a bit of a virtual staff room and we do help each other out wherever we can. Say yes to opportunities. Don't say no. Don't go, oh, well, I can't do that because that's going to be on a Saturday morning. Well, why not? Just do you want to have it just forego your lay-in for 6 weeks? If you don't like it after 6 weeks, go and do something else. Just look for opportunities and just learn that saying yes and looking for things, and try and find somebody to sound off to that is positive. Vicky would be good. Vicky Gilby needs to be everybody's positive mentor, because no matter what you say to her, she's positive about it. That's what you need. You need somebody really positive in your life.
Get your network. Get Vicky Gilby in your network.
Yeah.
Work out your bottom line.
Absolutely.
Salary calculator done.
That's it. And it isn't any more complicated than that.
I love it. I love it. Great advice.
I mean, honestly, genuinely, I say it in the Pit Pony video, and Sharon laughed at me at the time, but I can clean caravans in Cornwall and earn £125 a day. Oh. I only need to do that 3 days a week.
Yeah.
I can then get my rent paid from the Universal Credit, and I wouldn't be much worse off than what I am now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be this big career. Yes, you can lead it to a career. It can lead to, I class myself as owning a successful business. It can lead to that. But it doesn't have to be immediate. It doesn't have to be that you're going to get that day one from the off. Just take your time. Just say yes to different chances, different opportunities. See what happens.
I love it. It's real. It's genuine. You are making a big impact on everybody, and we love you for it. So
thank you.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time.
That's all right. Thank you.